Welcome everyone to our one session before the major workshop. Today we're going to talk about how to gain influence in your organization as a security leader, IT leader, or a manager, director in general. My name is Victor Monga. I am community leader for Fuel User Group. Currently, we are expanding our horizon within SoCal, Southern California, LA region, and one of the areas that we have been asked that we always focus on practitioner side of the challenges. We always give them the safe space to come in and talk about how to tweak and turn that knob to solve security challenges. But what about security leaders? We always have this problem where security leaders feel like they need a space where they can talk to each other. They can talk to someone who had gone through these problems and challenges. Someone can really give them a roadmap, not exactly the solutions, because every unique organization in has challenges in their own way. Risks are unique in their own way, but at least have some roadmap, at least have some references, guidances. When we talk about these framework standards, there's always so many when it comes to practitioner leadership. Oh my God, good luck with that. With that, we brought Kip Boyle today for this podcast, who have been a CISO since 2003. He is a thought leader. He is also a CEO, who is a founder, Udemy course instructor, podcast host, you name it. Oh my God, this dude is awesome. So we are hosting a workshop for leaders exclusive only for managers, directors on December 1st. And it's going to be virtual for 4 hours. And again, it's not a typical traditional training style. It's interactive where we talk about the leaders' problems. We talk about how it's very important to actually gain the influence within your organization. Again, it's not typically strictly for security only. Even if you're an IT leader, you still need to get stuff done within your own team and cross team. You need to align your objectives with the business so that we can deliver the value. With that, Kip, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you so much, Victor. I really appreciate the introduction and your confidence in me. Really appreciate it. On December 1st, when I lead the workshop for leaders, it is going to be a workshop, which is to say, there's going to be some teaching, and then there's also going to be some time for participants to actually do some things in the workshop, so that when you leave the workshop you'll actually have started several things that you can finish when you get back to your job. And so I want it to be practical. It's designed to be that way. And so today, what we want to do is give you a sneak peek at what it's going to be like to participate in the workshop. And so, as Victor said, we want to focus at a high level on how to help you be more influential in your place of work. Now, as a cybersecurity executive, to me, what that means is that I am able to connect with other people, my peers, and senior decision makers, and that when they want advice about how to take smart cyber risks, that they'll come to me and and they'll talk to me about plans that they're making right now. And to me, that's a huge sign of success. That says that I'm an influencer, and I don't even need an Instagram account, to be able to do that. The way I know I'm not an influencer is when I only hear about major changes after they've happened, and then I have to scramble to secure the stuff that's already been pushed into production, which is an awful place to be, right? So that's the workshop is really going to be focused on that. Now, how do you do that? Well, we're going to break it down into some key behaviors and activities that I've noticed that people struggle with the most, and I've struggled with these things too, but I feel like I've been able to uh, succeed and push through those obstacles. And I'm going to share with you how I did that. And today, in our session, I'm going to share one of those with you. So this is not intended to be death by PowerPoint, but I do have some very visual things that I want to share with you, and I've just found that doing it with slides is just the easiest way to go. All right, so the overall topic here is professionally developing your team members. Now, right away you're probably going to say, what does that have to do with me being an influencer? Well, I'm going to absolutely tell you there's a strong connection here, and I'm going to tell you exactly what that connection is. But before I do that, I want to mention a project. It's called the Cybersecurity Hiring Manager's Handbook. This is an open source project that is out online and available now. You can see the URL right there on the bottom of the screen. And I want you to know that what I'm going to share with you today, and then more broadly, what I'm going to share on December 1st when we get together with the participants of the workshop, is going to be taken in whole or in part from the Cybersecurity Hiring Manager's Handbook. Now, this handbook was written by 50 experienced hiring managers. I started this. I called them together. We all agreed that cybersecurity leaders needed to step up their game when it came to building teams, and so we wrote this handbook to help them do that. It's full of really great, useful information, a lot of wisdom. Um, if you go check it out and you get something valuable out of it, awesome. If you go check it out and you feel like we're missing something, you have to tell me. Tell me what we're missing, and then help me get that into the handbook. We published it under the Creative Commons International 4.0 license. So anybody can do anything they want with this as long as they give us attribution. Okay, so that's just there's something I want to say about the handbook that's going to come up again. Now, if you want to be an influencer in your role, the way I described, or maybe in a different way that you're thinking about, you've got to figure out the answer to this question, which is how can you work on your program instead of working in your program? And what I mean by that is you shouldn't be doing the work of an individual contributor. You need to minimize that. I'm assuming that you have one or more people that you can delegate tasks to. And that is really going to be the key to your success. Whether you have employees or subcontractors or outside service providers, you need to figure out how you can uh, get the routine work of your program into the hands of other people. What that's going to do is free you up to go and do the kinds of things that will help you become influential. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, how do I know what to delegate? Well, here's my guidance to you. You need to figure out what your core competency is in your program. For me, when I do work as a chief information security officer, one of my core competencies is building and maintaining relationships with my peers and the senior decision makers in my organization. Now, building relationships and maintaining them is a very time intensive activity. And so I've got to have that time. Otherwise, I can't build and keep those relationships running. So to me, that's a core competency. I can't delegate the creation of these relationships. I'm the only one who can do it. But I can delegate things like security assessments, and I can delegate things like firewall rule set reviews and things like that. Security assessments, all those things can be delegated, but I cannot delegate relationships. I hope that makes sense. I want you to think about what are the core competencies for you. What are the things that you have to do that you cannot easily delegate? Those are the things you have to hold on to. Everything else should be delegated.
Yeah, so a common question has been asked by security leaders, especially who have transitioned from the tactical or individual contributor technical side and they evolved from manager, directors, CISOs. It's very hard for them to actually delegate because, again, with their experience, with their knowledge, with their training, they feel they can add a value in the process. They feel that they can help out. For them to really step back and focus on, as you rightly pointed out, relationships. They are trying to get into the tactical portion of it. Any advice for them?
You know what? That's what this whole session today is about. Victor, is exactly that. I really appreciate the segue that you just gave to me right there. What I'm going to teach you today in our session is how to use a delegation tool so that you can feel confident that when you delegate to somebody that the work is going to be done very well. It may not be done as well as you do it. It might take that person 2 hours to do something that you could probably have done in 30 minutes. That's okay. Do not sweat that. Uh, Part of delegation is that you've got to give people an opportunity to try things that they've never tried before, and they're not going to be that efficient in the beginning. That's okay. This delegation tool is going to help you move through that awkward phase where people are taking longer to get it done than you would. And also, let's be honest, a big fear of delegation is, will the person drop the ball, right? Because that would be awful if somebody dropped the ball and you then have to clean up the mess. I totally get that. But I'm going to teach you how to do delegation in a very smart way, in a way that's not going to risk somebody dropping the ball. Now, it's going to allow you to be very effective and efficient, and it's going to get important recurring work off your plate and into the hands of somebody else. And when you do that, you're actually creating a professional development opportunity for somebody in your team. Look, if you don't let people try things they've never tried before, they can't grow, they can't learn, and they can't be better tomorrow than they were yesterday. So I want you to be thinking about, not only is this freeing you up, but you're also growing your team. And a strong team that doesn't need you on a day to day basis to get things done is ideal for you to become not only the influencer that I want you to be, but also it frees you up to help people when they need the help, because you'll have the time to sit with them and to listen to what's going on and to give them advice and steer them and help them. And whether that's somebody who works with you or whether that's a peer or a senior decision maker, you've got to be available. So now let's go ahead and dive into delegation and how to do it. Now, this technique that I'm going to teach you, I originally learned it from a very smart book called Fierce Conversations. The author is Susan Scott. Now, I took her approach to delegation and I adapted it for my purpose, for the purpose of the Chief Information Security Officer. This is very powerful, and I think it's going to help your whole team. Now, I spent time talking about the hiring manager's handbook, and the reason why I did is because what I'm about to teach you is in line with what we call an ideal. The hiring manager handbook talks about ideal practices that you should adopt. And the more of them you can adopt, the more powerful your team is, the one that you're going to build. And so we've got this retention ideal, and it says aggressively create learning and growth opportunities for your people by sending them to training, giving them a learning stipend, and sharing your network with them. And what I'm going to teach you today is how to create learning and growth opportunities without having to send them anywhere, just by keeping them at work. You're going to be able to create some really wonderful growth opportunities. And that is a real key to keeping people on your team over the long haul, so that when they get the phone call from the recruiter that says, I got a great opportunity for you, they go, nah, I'm good. I really like where I'm at. And I'm not going to chase dollars because I'm getting the growth opportunities that I need. Does that make sense so far, Victor? I mean, uh, does it pencil in for you?
This comes with experience, and I would say, and again, talking to my fellow tactical, evolved managers, directors, executives, where it's hard for them to have that, and also, as you said, the fear that something goes wrong, then I'll be blamed for it, but I should have been actually rolling my own sleeves and getting to it. One other thing, I think executives or managers, I should say, have this notion where this is too much in a business. So I mean, small businesses, sure, you can have seat at the table, but as you are in enterprise or a large corporation, it's so much going on. So by the time you build a relationship, the either person is reassigned or already exited the door. So where to invest the time has always been an evolving conversation. For those again who comes from technical background, who are coming from business side, they know that balance, I think, better than the technical people. Again, I'll speak on behalf of the technical community here.
I think you're right, Victor. And today we're not gonna drill into that, but it's a very important question, and I think it is part of the landscape. And so we will talk about that when we do the full 4 hour session on December 1st. That's exactly the kind of topic that we're going to tackle directly. All right. But today we only have time to do one thing. So I just want to do one thing that even if you can't come to this year's session, you're going to get some value. So the way I want you to think about delegation is I want you to not think about it as tasks so much as I want you to think about them as decisions, all right? And if you can do that, if you can think of delegation as delegating decisions, then I think this tool that I'm about to share with you is going to be very, very helpful. Now, let me give you an example before I dive into the tool of what I mean by a decision. So instead of saying, hey, I want you to process policy exception requests. Okay. That's a task, right? You receive a policy exception request, you analyze it, you do different things, and then you either approve it or you deny it. All right. But that's a task. But instead, I want you to see it as a decision, which is, hey, I want you to approve or deny policy exception requests. So I'm actually delegating a decision to you. All right. But I'm not going to just give you everything right off the bat. I'm not going to give you full decision making authority off the bat. I'm going to give you a little bit of responsibility. And then if you do well, then I'm going to give you a little bit more. And eventually, you are going to be able to, as my delegate, make decisions about whether a policy exception should be approved or denied. But we're going to build to it in a controlled way so that the opportunity for somebody to drop the ball is minimized at every step along the way. And we're only going to grant more capabilities as the person demonstrates their ability to handle it. So I shamelessly stole this this graphic from Susan Scott, but I want to give credit. All right. Now I want you to think of this delegation of decisions as a tree. There's different ways you can visualize this. I like the tree. So at the root level, when you delegate a decision, what you're saying is that you're going to do the work of analyzing the policy exception request. You're going to recommend what the decision should be. You're going to share that with me as because I'm delegating to you, but you're going to come to me and you're going to say, I evaluated this request. I recommend that we approve it or deny it, whatever the recommendation is. And here's why. And you're going to share with me your thinking behind why the decision should be approved or denied. And then I will make the decision. So at this stage, the delegate's not making any decisions at all. They're just practicing the analysis and making a recommendation. Now, once somebody demonstrates that they're doing a good job at the root level, then I will move them to trunk level. Here, what they're going to do is they're going to make the decision, they're going to act on it, but they're going to report to me those decisions very quickly. So maybe in a daily report, or if it doesn't occur that frequently, maybe a weekly report, whatever the frequency is. But the point is that they get to make the decision, but they have to tell me right away. That way, if I have to walk anything back, I have the opportunity to do that. It's not going to be out there for 6 weeks before I find out what the decision was, and then realize that it was a major mistake, and now I've got to do damage control. So that's the trunk level. Now, once somebody demonstrates that they're good at that level, now they're going to go to branch. They're going to make the decision. They're going to act on it. And oh, I'm sorry. At the trunk level, they report the decision before they take the action, so that way, if I have to stop anything, I can right before it becomes a disaster. So after the trunk level, it's the branch level where they start to be able to make decisions. They can act on the decisions, and then they just give me a report. Right. So I'm keeping an eye on this, but I already know by working with them at the root and trunk level that they can handle it. Now, if they can't handle it, then I don't move them to branch. I keep them at trunk until they can handle branch or until I am convinced that they're not going to be able to go to branch. And that's actually a good thing to discover because maybe the person isn't capable of going to branch or leaf level. And look at that. You've just saved yourself a whole lot of hassle and pain because you didn't leap immediately to leaf. And that's what you want to avoid. All right. A lot of people think delegation is an all or nothing sort of thing where they have to give them full control over the decision or not. And I'm saying no, break it up, make it 4 steps that you're going to move somebody through. Now, at the leaf level, they own it. They own this decision. They act on it, and they don't even need to report the decisions that they're making. They only need to tell me if something goes sideways. So they might be able to make 20, 25, 30 decisions before they ever have to say, "Hey, I got a weird one here. I've never seen this before. Can we go back to trunk level on this one? Because I'm just not sure what the right answer is." So do you see how you can actually go up and down this hierarchy depending on what whether a decision gets really really tough or not, and so this is how you should go about delegating. This is the conceptual model. Now I have a tool. I have 2 tools that will actually operationalize this for you. But before I share that, Victor, I just wanted to take a sip of water and give you a chance to weigh in. What do you think?
I think this is a really good roadmap. Honestly, when you become a manager or you have been a manager and you struggle with these sort of decisions day to day, where you have a team that you treat them equally. And I think that's one of the mistakes, at least I have seen people making, that they're treating everybody equally because they're afraid of actually playing favoritism. But there's a fine line. And I think Kip is going to talk about that on December 1st, a workshop. But this roadmap is actually really helping people to realize that based on the skill, the trust, the potential, and the talent people are exhibiting, you can actually empower them, which will free up your time, consequently helping you focus on those business relationship, the influence that Kip talked about already. Kip, let me ask you this question. In your experience and so many interviews you have done, how long does it take for average? How long does it take for a person to go from one level to another? Usually, let's say if someone starts at the root level, and if they want to get to branch level, or the manager's desire is to promote and enable this person, empower this person, what's that runway looks like?
Yeah. So it can vary. It can vary depending on how frequently the decision needs to be made. If it's a decision that's made several times a day, then a person can accumulate a lot of experience quickly and they can move through this hierarchy pretty fast as long as they can keep up with the changes here, the increased responsibility. If it's a decision that only comes around once a week, twice a week, something like that, you're not going to be able to move through it quite as quickly because it takes them longer to build up expertise. All right. So that's kind of the dynamic that I've seen. Now, let's talk about when you should delegate because not everything is a good thing to delegate. All right. So here's some ways you can know that a task or a decision is worth delegating. So you should be thinking about the delegate as much as you think about the decision, right? So do you have somebody on your team who is ready to take on a challenge like this? And if you don't, then you should ask yourself, well, what could I do to get somebody ready? Is there something that I can do to get them to a point where I can delegate this to them? Another thing that you should be thinking about is this a recurring task, right? Because the more time, or sorry, the more that the decision is similar, then it's going to be faster for somebody to build up expertise. If it's highly variable, if it's customized decision making every single time, where the inputs are always going to be different, it's going to be a lot harder for them. So the more the decision is uniform, the better. You have to make sure you also have enough time to delegate this decision to people. You can't just flip it over the wall and walk away. You are going to have to do a little bit of planning. You're going to have to do a little bit of investing in this person in order to affect a smooth, controlled handoff. But I think it's worth the investment because if you can make this happen, then it's going to free you up, probably permanently, from having to do this recurring thing. And so these are some of the things you should ask yourself. Now, I have a tool. And now you have a tool because guess what? I'm going to show you the URL in a moment where you can download this tool for yourself. But first, I want to walk you through how this tool works so that you'll be able to use it for yourself. All right. Now, the way this thing works is the top part of this uh, plan is static. It's just instructions. All right. And it describes the model. You're going to have a copy of this. Your delegate's going to have a copy of this. And I found that if I keep the top part of this tool, if I keep the root, trunk, branch, description in there, it's just easier for my delegate to remember where they are and what does it mean to move from one level to the next. The actual decisions or tasks are going to be in the table at the bottom. And you can see here that there are three tasks or three decisions. And here I've given an example of some tasks that I have related to the Cyber Risk Management podcast that we do. So you'll see the first task is to keep the podcast editorial calendar complete and current on a daily basis, right? And then under the description, I say, well, we that calendar is found in Excel online, and I give them the URL to it. I want you to keep notes in ClickUp, which is our task tracking system, and you're going to need the content from the scripts that we create for the episodes, because you're going to have to take that information out of the script and you're going to have to put it in the editorial calendar so that you can get the name of the episode correct, you can get the guest name correct, that sort of thing. Now notice here on the right hand side where it says root, trunk, branch, leaf. You can see where with this first task set of decisions, I'm starting them out at branch. And these numbers here is January 8th. It's not 1/8. It's January 8th. So on January 8th, this person, Peter Gibbons, is going to take branch level responsibility for keeping the editorial calendar complete and current on a daily basis. And if he does a good job of that, then I'll get him to the leaf level 2 weeks later on January 22nd. So I hope I did a good job explaining this, Victor. What do you think about this so far?
Again, I think this is excellent for those again who needs a roadmap. I think this is exactly can help them track their decisions, tell them almost a reminder that when they have to go check up on it. And also I think this helps us to continue having the conversations with our direct reports, and when performance reviews comes in, when bonus time comes in, that hey, this is where you are and this is where I expect you to be, or I'm hoping that you will be with my empowerment that I'm giving it to you. And as you're climbing up the ladder, obviously that they are freeing up your time, but they're also growing their career. So this is not only for the managers, but the people who will be part of this plan to help them see a roadmap. As you said, like if a recruiter calls me up and I know that I am on a career growth plan here, why would I start from scratch again?
Right. Good. I'm glad you can see it. Now, I've got a couple of extra rows there for a couple of different tasks, but it's following the same format. So I'm not going to read them to you. But I think by inspecting those rows, you can see that I'm uh, defining a task, I'm describing the resources that the person needs, and I'm setting a cadence for how I'm going to move them from root to trunk to branch to leaf. Now, you're going to make this, and you might have multiple of these with a single person. And if you have multiple of them and you have many people on your team, right, you could have like 25 or 30 of these things in play at any given time. So you're going to have to be organized and you're going to have to keep track of this, right? But as much as that's a little bit of administrative work, it's better than doing all this stuff yourself. Okay? You're going to give up, 4 hours of your day doing these tasks over to somebody on your team, and in return, you're going to do 30 minutes a day of administration, and you're going to take those other 3.5 hours and you're going to use it to build relationships with people, okay? Or whatever's core, whatever's strategic for you. Now, how do you teach people what to do? Because I haven't talked about that yet, okay? So this is the model that I use, and I use this. I do this in my regularly scheduled one-on-one time with my folks. All right. So the first thing I do to train them is I do the task while they watch, and then they can talk to me as I'm doing the task. Now, I find in a remote work scenario, and even if you are not remote work, even if you're in person, I like making a video and doing a screen capture with an audio narration so that when my delegate watches the video, if they feel like they missed something, they can watch the video again. They can rewind it. If it's been a week since they watched it and they have to do something, they can go watch it again and refresh themselves. Making a video is going to save you gobs of time because they're not going to come back and say, "Would you show me how to do that again?" So that's the first step. The second step is I let them watch the video and I say, "Okay, I want you to do it. I will watch you do it and we'll talk while you do it." A great way to do this is through a screen sharing app. That way you can coach them in real time. They'll share their screen, they'll show the web form or whatever the task is related to, and they're going to do it, and I'm going to watch them. Now the third part is they do it, then we talk about it. I don't watch them do it. They just do it, and they tell me they did it. And then I say, "How did it go?" And then the fourth step is they just do it. Okay. And then that's how you get somebody from zero, they don't know how to do it, to they can do it. Now, the only question is, are they root, trunk, branch, or leaf? All right. So, what do you think about this?
I think again, I will admit one thing here. This is really great for, again, for those who are trying to empower your team, delegate the work, or struggling with delegation, because it is overwhelming when you start thinking about it. I personally, and some of the people I know, have spent months, not days, not hours, months, trying to create this algorithm, trying to create these meetings, or trying to find these mind maps where we can delegate. And yet we are again at the same point where we just have to restart. But this provides you that roadmap. One thing I will say, don't be lazy. This is not a part where it's automated for you. You are, as a leader, the center of it. You have to push through it. You want to free up your time by delegating. This plan really hinges upon your shoulders, and really, you have to be the force multiplier here. You can be lazy here. Even if the plan is there and it's going to help you delegate, you can delegate the plan to delegate. So I'll reiterate that again, coming from the practitioner background and working with the technical resources who became managers, directors, executives. Sometimes we tend to find a shortcut. There is no shortcut here.
Yeah, there's really no easy button on this stuff, but it is systematized, right? So I've put it into steps that should be easy enough that you can teach yourself. I mean, as the team leader or as the department leader, it really makes a difference if you teach people. If you just throw things at them like tasks and decisions and you don't teach them, that's going to come back on you more times than not in a bad way. So, I really emphasize, that you have to teach people. Now, if you're not the kind of person who enjoys teaching, I don't know what to say to you. I really don't, because I think teaching people what to do is the best approach for delegation. And so that's the approach that I'm taking and that I can share with you. Now, let's talk about some common errors. All right. First is, if you're training people because you're not much of a teacher in a way that's confusing to them, or you haven't given them all the information that they need, they're going to struggle. And they may not have the courage to tell you that what you said to them was confusing and that you haven't given them everything they need to be successful. So, be prepared for that. That even if you try really hard, this could still happen. All right. And if it does, don't freak out. Just say, "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to confuse you. And I'm sorry I left some stuff out. Tell me what it is you need so that I can fix this." All right. So don't let your ego get too big here. All right, it's inevitable. You're going to make mistakes. It's all right. Just own it and then fix it. You need to give your delegate enough time to practice. If they only get to do the decision, once a week, and you want them to move from trunk to branch in 2 weeks, it's not realistic. So think through that. You don't want to move to leaf too quickly. Trust me, I get this. I would love to put people on leaf as fast as possible, because that says it's completely out of my field of view unless something bad happens. But if you go too quickly, they might wipe out and make a way bigger mess than you ever expected, and then you're gonna have to clean up. You don't always have to start at root. You remember when I showed you the tool, which I'm going to give you a link to, you can download your own copy. there were 3 decisions. One of those decisions, I started them off at branch because it just wasn't that tough. And my judgment was is that they were going to pick that up really, really quickly. Um, Once you reach leaf, hands off. Don't over control. Don't meddle. Let them do it the way that they want to do it. As long as they're producing the result you need, give them the freedom to do it in a way that makes sense for them. As long as they're not being unethical, right? As long as they're not wasting resources, just realize that they may not be as quick at it as you are, and that's all right. And then finally, you may end up choosing a delegate that's not ready, either because you judged wrong or because you judged based on the facts that you had. But then later on, you find out that there's more to that person than you realize. Now, I want to give you a second tool. This tool that I'm about to show you is very, very powerful. So don't misuse it. This is called the People Analyzer. And by using the People Analyzer, it can help you know who on your team is worth training so that they can become a delegate. So here it is. It's called the People Analyzer. I shamelessly stole this from a guy named Gino Wickman. He wrote a book called Traction. And in this book, he talked about how do you know if a person is, fully committed and fully engaged in the work that you're doing if they're a member of your team. And so he said, hey, I invented this people analyzer and I went through this and I went, God, this is perfect. So I stole it and it's here in the presentation, but I want you to know that I absolutely respect this is Gino Wickman's work. But here's how it works, okay? Each row contains the name of a team member. Here you got Herb, Rita, Kurt, and Diane. Each column is the name of either a value, like something that you value as part of your culture. Like here you can see the first column is to give help first. The second is to grow or die. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's got 5 values on this chart. Then you can see the last 3 columns are get it, want it, and capacity to do it. All right. So those will be the same no matter what your company values are, team values are, the get it, want it, do it, that'll be the same. Now, the way you do this is you put a person's name in and then you go across each column and you ask yourself, does the person do this most of the time, some of the time, or rarely or never? And you can see here that Herb in the help first value, Herb is like a plus minus. That means most of the time he does it, but sometimes he doesn't, right? So he's kind of teetering on the brink. Look at Kurt in the first column. Kurt got a minus, which means Kurt, he rarely does it. Like, he's just not playing a ball on this one. Now, as you read across to the right, you can see that Herb gets plus, 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 right? And then you look at Rita, and then you look at Kurt's got a lot of negatives down there, and Diane's got, all pluses. And then you look at, do these people get it? Which is to say, do they understand our mission? Do they want it? Which is to say, do they understand their place in our team? Do they want to be in the role that they're in? And then the final one is, do they have the capacity to do what I've asked them to do? And yes, no. And here's the thing. Once you've analyzed folks, it's probably going to not tell you anything you didn't know already, but it's going to put it all in front of you in a way you may not have cognitively thought about before. All right. You don't want to delegate anything to a person who's got a lot of minuses, right? Like Kurt, I'd be nervous about delegating anything to Kurt because he rarely helps first. He rarely shows any grow or die mentality, and he doesn't want it. He's disengaged on the job, right? So he's not a good choice. Look at Herb, look at Diane. Much better choices, very high marks. They live the values and they get what we do. They want their role and they have the capacity to do it. In Diane's case, look at Herb though. No, he doesn't have the capacity to do it. Herb is like Chat GPT, all right? An overly eager intern wants to be here, desperately wants to be part of the team, but sometimes hallucinates and gives the wrong answer. All right. So you don't want to delegate to Herb, or if you do, you want to be very careful what you give Herb to do. All right. So This is how you can screen people to know whether you should be delegating to them. Victor, have you ever seen this before?
I haven't, and as I'm hearing from you, I think this again gives us a strong reason for why people should come to your workshop. People manager, tech manager, cybersecurity managers, they should come to your December 1st workshop and learn all of these techniques. Honestly, this will help. I'm not saying for people to be a better manager, but this will give you the tools and tricks that you can actually use and craft in your own way to help your team and ultimately help you and your business.
I think it will. I've used all of these. I use them all now. I don't share tools and techniques with you that don't work. If there's any flaws or biases with them, I'll tell you what they are. Okay, now, one of the biggest problems that I've ever faced when I've been trying to delegate in this highly structured way is I've been accused of micromanaging people. And and I've struggled with this because it is not my intent to micromanage people. But in the beginning, when somebody's at the root and trunk level of the tree, it will potentially feel to them like they're being micromanaged. If they've never gone through something like this before, it's going to feel weird. So so I would say that if you get accused of micromanagement, make sure you go back and explain, look, this is what we're doing. And I know right now you're at root and or trunk. Listen, when we get to branch and leaf, you're going to see a completely different set of behaviors from me because I want you to get to leaf where you don't need to tell me what decisions you're making unless something goes wrong. So just, make sure you let them know like, look, as soon as we can get you to leaf, the better for everybody, right? And and say, but it depends on your ability to deliver, right? According to the level that we're at. Now, as a challenge to them or as a sign that you're not micromanaging them, you could say, hey, look, you can, I gave you an SOP, but that's just a starting point. If you want to do it differently because it's going to, work better for you, I'm open to that. Rewrite the SOP in a way that makes sense to you, bring it back to me, and as long as you're producing the right result in an ethical way, then fine. And it's just a way to demonstrate to them that although it may feel like micromanagement, that is not where you're going. All right. So now, if we were in the December session, the workshop, at this point, I would tell everybody I'm going to give you 10 minutes where I'm not going to say anything. 10 minutes of quiet time, and I'll keep the watch. Right. I'll set a timer. I want you to open your laptops or your tablets. I want you to go retrieve that tool, and then I want you to create at least two tasks that you want to delegate, get off your plate, and I want you to just draft it all in there. And I'll give you 10 minutes to do it because I want you to leave the workshop with something that you can go back to the office and implement. So there's the URL right there. Take a screen grab so you can go get it for yourself. And then after you do the exercise, then I'll ask you, do you want feedback, right? If you want me to give you on the spot feedback for something that you've done, just give me the URL of your Google Doc and I'll share my screen and we'll all look at it together and we'll all help this person get to a place where they can begin the process of delegating to people. And there you go, Victor. That's that's a sneak peek at the kind of things we're going to be doing at the workshop.
I think this is more than a sneak peek. I think this is a lot valuable for those who won't be able to attend, and a great trailer and more for those who will be able to attend. It's an exclusive leadership manager only workshop, and we're going to have an intimate group of like 12 to 20 people, 12 to 15 people. That's about it. And the whole goal is for us to really talk to the leaders, help them realize that even if you're struggling, there is a safe space in community that we are creating for you. This workshop is 100% free for all the leaders who will be selected to join us. Okay, once again, thank you very much. For those who have not Googled it yet, go ahead and search for Cybersecurity Hiring Manager Handbook by Kip, and you will be able to access
Yep.
that for free. You can Venmo me $10 if you want, but Kip is not charging you for
Thanks
that.
everybody for being here. And if you're going to be at the workshop on December 1st, I'll see you there.